Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of JKL Media Reviews with my co-host Jesse
Hello.
and Karen,
Hello.
and I am Lou, and I also say hello. So this time we're doing another one-off, and I wanted to revisit a movie that when I was much younger, like in my teens, I think, made a big impact on me, and I hadn't seen it since. But I thought that would be a great time to revisit it, and that would be the 1967 movie To Sir with Love, starring Sidney Poitier. And I want to hear what you guys say first before I give my thoughts. But all I'm going to say right off the top is in 1967, Sidney Poitier was one hell of a good looking guy.
No joke.
Yeah. Jesse, what did you think of this movie?
I felt that same way. I was struck by how handsome he was and how charismatic he was. Yeah, I liked this one. Didn't love it. And I think part of it is the uncomfortableness of some of the situations. It would be interesting. We've seen other versions of this since then, where the dynamic teacher comes in, works with a crowd of either low income or tough people and turns them around. I have questions, but overall it was a very entertaining film and an interesting look at that time period. And there is many of the dialogue and themes he explores are out of date nowadays. But
No.
it as if you accept it for what it was, and his performance was just
Mm.
outstanding.
Karen.
Yeah, I'd seen this movie, but it was a long time ago. There was a point in time, like during high school, when I watched Turner Classic Movies all the time. It was like an obsession of mine. I was into Cary Grant a lot. But this
Understandable.
movie, yeah, this movie was one of those that I watched several times because I really enjoyed it. And watching it now, how many years later? 30 some years later? Wow. 30 some years later, I realize how out of date it is, but it's still a really enjoyable movie. There's a lot of stuff in it that is naive, I think, but I appreciate it for what it is. And you're right, Sidney Poitier, oh, really handsome. And the girls were beautiful. I just really love the whole like ambiance of the movie. I thought was really cool. Almost a Technicolor kind of vibe. And in the 60s, that was the deal, really colorful and everything popped. I was born in the 60s, so everything was cool. But I really enjoyed this movie even a second time around. I just noticed some of the outdated themes in it.
Yes. So for those who have no clue of what we're talking about, I'll do a quick movie recap just so you understand what we're talking about. To Sir with Love is a 1967 British drama film that deals with social and racial issues in a secondary school in the East End of London. It stars Sidney Poitier and features Christian Roberts, Judy Geeson, Susie Kendall, Patricia Routledge, and singer Lulu making her film debut. Surprisingly, and I didn't realize this until this rewatch, James Clavell of Shogun fame directed from his own screenplay, which was based on E.R. Braithwaite's 1959 autobiographical novel of the same title. Probably, if you're going to know this movie for anything, it's going to be for the film's title song, To Sir with Love, sung by Lulu, who I seem to be some sort of big British pop star. I guess their version of, what's her name? The one that has the big concerts nowadays again. The blonde. God,
Taylor Swift?
yeah, Taylor Swift. I guess she was a Taylor Swift of her era. It's interesting revisiting this movie because I agree with mostly what both you said about it being outdated. I do think that the core issues of identity and trying to find yourself in a place in society, especially where society has written you off, I still think that those issues are still prevalent
Mm.
today, probably even more. And interesting thing that I wasn't aware of. there was actually a To Sir with Love too that I had no idea existed until I went back and did this. And that takes place in 1996 in a Chicago school. And even that one seems quaint because I actually went and watched it.
Did
uh,
you?
Wow.
yeah, and it's actually not bad. It doesn't, to its credit, it doesn't totally follow the same formula of the first movie. It goes off in a different direction in the third act, which I found refreshing. But I think the number one thing that struck me is they really milked the theme song
Mm.
in this movie. Like
Four times?
they played it in the opening credits, and they played it at the end of the movie, and I'm pretty sure that they played it somewhere in between those two parts of the movie. But I do think that the appeal, whatever I thought of it back then, I do think that a large part of its success is totally due to Sidney Poitier. He's playing like a, I don't want to say, but to me, he almost reminds me of like of a Spock kind of character. He's very logical. He has a strong moral compass as well. So it's an interesting portrayal. And the tough part is for the kids. It's hard to portray accurately what the vibe or the mentality of these students would be in any given era. It doesn't really matter. They come off initially as very unruly and gruff, but they turn the corner pretty quickly. And I guess that's part of the conceit of a movie that's only less than 2 hours long. But it was nostalgic, is the best way I could put it in a way, because of how things turn. So I I don't really know how to discuss this one too deeply, to be honest. I don't like we could, if you want to talk about particular students or whatever, Jesse, when I turn it over to you, you can do that. But I guess I just really want to get into the moral code that to Sidney Poitier, Mr. Thackeray was trying to instill in the students. And that part of it, I think, is still relevant today. Unfortunately, but it's been mostly lost as well.
So, of there was a book I read years ago that said the book was The Three Signs of a Miserable Job. And it's anonymity, irrelevance, immeasurement. And so they said to make a job care, they have to have, they have to know who they are. They have to know why what they're doing is important. And then you have to measure what they're doing. And that structure is what will bring happiness at a job. Not total happiness, but it will make your employees a little more happy. I find it a little unbelievable, though you buy the premise, you buy the bit, that by just imposing these rules on them, we're going to call each other by our last names. We're going to have a civil discussion. We're not going to start talking till someone else is finished, was enough to turn them around. That was my point of it's almost like magic that putting in this that made him care about him. Now, I guess in the back of my mind, he's the first person in a while that has shown them respect and therefore demanded it from them. But it was a little hard for me to get past that. How's this working? They were totally unengaged and could have no F's to give. And by just putting in that rules, we turn them around. So I'd love for both of you to give your thoughts on that.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. It seemed like it skimmed over things. It got into some situations completely, and then it seemed really fast. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, I've seen other movies where the teacher comes in and turns the school around, and there's a racial component and all that stuff that I think were heavily inspired by this movie. This was the first of these movies. And I do think it had a lot to do with the time period, because this is when teenagers really started rebelling in a way that was a big, like, movement. And I know it happened before then in the 20s and all that, but this was like heavily publicized and music was a part of it and all that. I think it was timely in that regard because this was big, like a big subject in that time period. But I do agree that it, I don't know if I'd say unbelievable because it does span the course of a year.
Yes.
So if you look at it that way, I could see them being turned around by the end of the year, but we didn't see that.
Yeah.
We just saw little bits and pieces of it. And I think it would have been nice if it concentrated more on that instead of doing the little like going to the funeral and going to the museum. The museum was great though, I have to say. I'm going to go a little off topic here if that's okay, and then we can get back to the skimming of
Us
it.
off talk it? No
Yeah.
way.
Go ahead and Lou, I'll see to you. Go ahead and talk about what Jesse was asking.
Yeah, that definitely was the hardest part of the movie to buy. I do think it works to a certain degree, though, is when he takes all the textbooks and dumps them in the garbage can. And that's the point where you can say, okay, I can buy into this because he's basically dumping the curriculum and he's going to teach them something that they are not expecting. And basically, that's the facts of life as because this is a senior class, they're going to graduate, and most of
Mhm.
them don't have any future to look forward to. So I did appreciate that aspect of the story, and it works in part because of the charisma that Sidney Poitier as that character has. Now,
Yeah.
I think it would take a special teacher, and I don't know, like this, because it's based on this book by R. Braithwaite. I don't know if this person was that kind of a charismatic person. Part of me also thinks that despite the rebellious nature of teenagers, they do want a authority figure to as a role model to look up to. But the problem is they're so jaded and disenchanted that if they find one flaw in that person, they will quickly turn on them. And I think they want somebody that practices what they preach and not somebody who just gives lip service to ideals. And I
Yeah.
think that was the character that Poitier was portraying in the movie. I do think it was interesting that the point at which they thought they had gotten to him is when the girls were burning that sanitary napkin and he lost his temper, but he didn't ever physically strike out at anyone in the class, even really during the boxing match with the one rebel
Denim.
of the class.
Yeah.
And he walked the walk and he just didn't
Yes,
talk
he
the
did.
talk. And that is probably the thing that I admire most about the movie. And maybe that's the most unrealistic thing about the movie. I don't
Mm,
know how many people in real life would do what this character was doing in this situation. And that and contrasted against the other teachers, you wonder how they were all so cheery, except for the one dour guy who had
Yeah.
totally given up. But so I think that I answered your question.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did think him freaking out over the hygiene product was a little very much of the time. Now it's get over it. It's the whole husbands being embarrassed to go buy woman products.
Which still
You
happens.
know, yeah, yeah, I
it does still
guess.
happen.
Yeah,
I've never done it.
I used to
Seriously?
do it.
No.
I used to do it all the time.
Oh,
But yeah, I also I think it made me slightly uncomfortable the student having the crush on him. I understand it, but it and they handled it well. He went and talked to someone about it. She said it's to be expected. Just don't be alone. Don't
mm-hmm.
give people reason to talk. And I guess that ends in them dancing together and everyone applauding. What I wish they had done, and I guess in the book, he has a romantic relationship with one of the teachers. And they imply that a little bit, but they don't go through all of it. And I was reading that was the book's writer, was not happy that they cut that out.
Yeah,
That
okay.
he thought that was an important part of it. You
That's putting
know,
it lightly.
yeah,
He said in an interview that he absolutely hated this movie because it left out the interracial relationship between
Mm.
him and the Jillian
Well, then he
character.
would have hated the sequel because in the sequel
Yep.
he married a black woman.
Yep.
yeah, and I think that would have. I think if we had made the movie now,
That would have been a big, wouldn't have been a big deal.
no,
Mm-mm.
and in
I
fact,
back in that era, I can understand why they cut it out though.
yeah, and I do. Anytime one of the things when I watch British TV,
Hmm?
there seems to be always a little less. That doesn't seem as shocking on a BBC series, a mixed race, than it does
Hmm.
in American TV.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's something that always strikes me. That's cool.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
still
Yeah,
for sure.
pockets of that, like racism there,
yeah,
like an incredible amount of racism. But overall, I think the country, maybe the whole UK, is a little more ahead of us in that department. And mostly because they had territories like Guyana, India,
yeah.
where there was an intermixing of those cultures with British
Yeah. I,
sensibilities.
I
So,
think that must be a Commonwealth thing because in Canada, that's not really an issue either. Like I'm sure there's pockets of areas of the country that would look down upon that, but generally people are like, that's not my business if they're happy. We don't
and
ostracize.
I know it seems prevalent here, but I think it's a similar thing. It's more militant here, so it gets more publicity. But everyone I know is a normal person. They're not racist, sexist. They're just not any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
To be
know it's prevalent
Yeah,
here.
but to be fair, the kids all expressed an angst about attending their classmate's funeral because he was colored, and they were
Hmm.
all basically the most of the class was white.
Yeah.
So and I'm saying Britain's
No.
nirvana for mixed races, or just racial tensions. So I actually thought that was a pretty good story point, and maybe that was their attempt at addressing racial issues as opposed to showing the mixed marriage that the writer of the book was upset about.
Yeah, and I may be biased because the wonderful Blinded by the Light movie deals with a lot of Pakistani and prejudice in the US, in the UK.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Have either one of you seen that?
No, I have not.
No.
No.
All right, that's next week's assignment.
Oh, okay.
There we
Okay.
go.
Yeah,
I
Blinded
was thinking of the
by the
song. Yeah.
light.
yeah,
I thought that was your sneaky way of getting a Springsteen reference into the
yeah.
conversation.
So, yes, I will, as we talked about, I can't remember the story, but there was something being discussed at when we were at a family dinner for 4th of July. And I said, and just to prove that this, I said that to enforce the theory that Jesse can find anything, any subject and find a way to connect it to Springsteen. And I told a Springsteen story.
Of
There you
course.
go.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
you use the fact that you can connect everything to Springsteen to actually connect things to Springsteen.
Exactly.
Very
Yes.
mete of you. Very
Thank you.
meta.
Yes.
And now you're using the fact that you used the fact that you can,
Yes.
you're going a third step
Yes, it
there.
is. Yeah.
Okay, let me bring up the thing that I was, if that's okay with you guys.
Please. Yes.
Talking about Sidney Poitier and his character of Thackeray, I agree with you that I feel like he was very Spock-like, stoic, heavy moral code. But the thing I loved about his portrayal was how you could see underneath that. And I say facade, but I don't think it's a facade. I think it's really who he was. But even the opening scenes where he's on the bus and the ladies are all talking around him, and towards the end, he gets just a tiny little smile. And I love that really subtle way of portraying that he had a softer side. And, he shows it a little bit like he's not really daunted by this assignment on the outside, but you could tell he had a little trepidation taking that class. I just think there was a really subtle undertone of vulnerability in the character, and I appreciated that. He's not a one note character. I'll also mention like the other two movies that I think about when it's this sort of thing are Stand and Deliver and Dangerous Minds.
Yeah.
And those are also based on true stories, but they're true stories from the point of view of the entire group of people, the kids and the teachers and the administration, they all contributed to those books that the movies were based on. It's at least a 90% true story, whereas this one, it's just from the perspective of Thackeray, who was based on Braithwaite himself, and you wonder how much of it is realistic. And it's easy to wonder that because, and God, I'm getting off on another topic already, because I feel like that character had a lot up against him. And those kids, like from Greece, they were very Greece type characters. I wonder how effective he would have been against them. And I wonder, in doing so, I wonder if Braithwaite is idealizing himself. So that's my take on the movie. And that's only because I can look back on it seeing these other movies. So I posit that.
Okay. I find it interesting because this definitely is a sentimental pick for me. I'm definitely thinking back when I thought of it, was thinking through rose-colored glasses. I had this movie elevated a lot higher in my mind than when I actually rewatch it. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's almost a bit of a fantasy in the way that, and it seems like the reception for this movie, even in the time period it was released, people were calling it sentimental non-realism. So, that element of the dynamics of the classroom is not really believable to a large degree. But this is the good thing is, and we've mentioned this several times, is it's just the power and charisma of Sidney Poitier that makes it even work and at any level at all, really.
I agree.
That's pretty amazing. There was something else I wanted to mention.
And I thought of a little bit of Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah.
There you go.
Where they go, you're a teacher by nature. You were wasted as a cop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that great scene, how did it feel when you hit the dad? It felt good. I knew it did. Yeah. So yeah, I get that. And I love the idea that he wants to be an engineer because who wouldn't, right? It would obviously pay better than this. But they're going, no, you have a calling. I did love that whether I agree with the way he did or not in the movie, he did get to these kids, did get them. And I do love the premise that you don't need algebra right now. You need just figure out a way to handle yourself as an adult. So I thought that was
these aren't people that need AP classes.
Right. Yeah.
They have the basics of what they need. Yeah. Some of them can't read, but in that area of London, that's not a requisite to get a factory job or whatever.
Yeah.
And I love that if you need it, get it later. But right now, I got to prepare you for what's next. And I think that's realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the nice little touches I did was the one totally disillusioned teacher, Mr. Weston. And again, this is a movie magic kind of moment. But at the end, he's cleaned himself up and he's crazy about that salad with the lettuce and the grapes and the mayonnaise.
Yeah.
I thought that was
I can't stand it. And he's like, oh, and she's like, no, this is great.
And then she really fills up his plate with a pile.
A bunch of
Yeah.
it, yeah.
So like she's trying to get rid of it. I
He
kind of like
even
that moment.
turned Theo around a little bit at the end. I
That's
think
what I was
he's
talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's very entrenched in his ways and racist.
Yep.
At least it's implied. And I do love that he even has an effect on the adults around him.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool. Yeah, I love that salad scene. It really does show that he's softening towards Thackeray, but again, he's still a cantankerous old coot kind of vibe, even though
Yeah.
he's a little younger than that. But
yeah. The other moment I also like too is when he was talking to the class about, and they were talking about they're disillusioned with adults and that, and they're all start talking about their long hair and whatnot, and telling him that your hair is based on styles that were around 200 years ago. And then he takes them to the museum, and they see all the plastic busts of all these famous people with long hair and that. I thought that was a nice moment as well.
I thought the montage was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very much of the time,
Yeah.
but a cool one to see.
Very effective.
Yeah, I do think, and you mentioned this earlier, Karen, that in the podcast I talk about fairly often, the history of rock and roll in 500 songs. It talks about one of the ways that music was influenced was in the 50s was the first. There's always been quote unquote teenagers, but the 50s, 40s and 50s, when they became their own, they had their own money, and people decided, oh, wait, there is a market out there that has disposable income. We need to find a way to get it from them. And that had a lot to do with rock and roll and where it came from. And so when he's talking about your music being rebellion, and one of the other things I love is it's frustrating as a parent, but the reality is your child's part of their growing up is figuring out how to become an adult is rebellion. And so I thought this was done really well on that part. Yeah.
And I also like that he emphasized the point that it should be done peacefully.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thank you guys for watching this with me. I realized this was a sentimental pick on my part, and
mine too.
Now that I've watched it as a much older person, it's almost comical in certain aspects of it.
It's really good though, Lou.
But it's in these cynical times. It's like the kind of stories that we need. I mean, I like that. I like a dark story as much as the next person, but every once in a while, you need a palate cleanser, like a Rocky or I can't even think of too many uplifting movies.
Miracle.
Yeah.
There's a lot of.
Yeah. What's that running movie? Chariots of Fire.
Yeah.
Those kind of movies.
People that overcome adversity, right?
Yes, exactly. And like even if it's a little darker, say Walking Tall or something like that. One man standing up for something, even if there's a personal cost for him.
I'll also say Shogun. Mentioned earlier from James Clavell. It's an Englishman fitting into culture, another culture.
Yeah.
And
So,
I've read some of the books
in his Asian.
Yeah, in the Asian.
I've seen
trilogy.
the movie with miniseries with Richard Chamberlain.
That was good.
And I watched the recent TV miniseries, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Highly recommended. To anybody out there who hasn't seen it yet.
I read Shogun a million years ago.
Yeah, I read Taipan and watched the miniseries. Really love the miniseries, Brosnan. I don't know if it's available anywhere online, but I'm
sure it's available somewhere.
Yeah.
Hint.
No, Noble House.
Noble House.
Taipan was the film. In the film's okay, the book's good, but Noble House was the miniseries, and I really recommend it. It's a great miniseries, and I don't know if it's available anymore.
I gotta say, on a side note, that era, I guess it was like the early 80s. Where we had a bunch of miniseries come out, North and South.
Yeah.
Shogun and
Roots,
Yeah.
Roots,
Yeah.
Millennium.
Rich Man, Poor Man.
Oh,
North and
so
South.
good. Walking Tall.
Yeah.
All of those are amazing. Maybe we should cover some of those later on, but that was, I think it was a great time for those kind of timeless stories. And I think this kind of fits into that category.
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot to do with Clavel being involved in the screenplay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So let me talk real quick about some of the cast, and really only one person in the cast. Patricia Rutledge was in this movie. Who did she play? Clinty, one of the other teachers.
Minty
Okay.
Clintridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recognize her from other things.
Yeah. My mom and I, this is a thing we shared, so it was a pang for me. We watched Keeping Up Appearances all the time. And it was one of our favorite things. Our whole family was into the BBC stuff growing up. I was definitely
Hmm.
Doctor Who was a thing in my life. Blake Seven, Keeping Up Appearances. There was another show similar to Keeping Up Appearances. I don't remember. But oh, and the Dame Judi Dench
Mm.
show, which I can't remember. But Keeping Up Appearances was a big thing for my mother and I. So seeing her in this, I was like, oh, I remember my mom and I watching that. And it was a sad thing
Hmm.
for me. I miss my mom a lot. But it was cool to see her in something where she was competent. In Keeping Up Appearances, she was a farce, essentially.
Yeah.
So Mrs.
But
Bean.
yeah, yeah. She called herself Bouquet, Hyacinth Bouquet, but it was spelled bucket.
Mm.
Oh,
And that's the whole theme of the show is her trying to elevate herself to fit into this other society.
Right.
And it was definitely a farce. She was caught out all the time and her neighbors looked down on her. But
Mm.
again, it was really cool seeing her in this. And I think the cast overall did an amazing job in this movie. We mentioned Sidney Poitier, which, I mean, that's a no-brainer. I can't remember a role that I saw him in. What is that? The dinner one.
Someone's coming to dinner. Guess
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
coming? Guess who's coming to dinner?
Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? That was a standout for
Heat
me.
of the night.
Oh, yeah. He was great in everything I ever saw him in. And I think the rest of the cast did a great job. I think Christian Roberts as Denham, he was definitely a big character, but I think he did a good job with it. I think
hmm.
Judy Geeson, who played Pamela, being in love with him, I think she did a great job. I think the actress that played Jillian was a great addition. She was very cute. And I liked the Theo character because that's, if you watch any show about a school, a high school, there's always that disillusioned teacher
Yeah.
that just doesn't care. And I think he
Mm.
did a good job with that too. So I want to really give props to the rest of the cast as well. Sidney was, he was the star of this movie and
Yeah.
he made this movie really good. And I think the rest of the cast helped to elevate that a
Hmm.
little bit. So I just want to give a shout out to everyone.
And just for those
Nice.
curious about the sequel, Judy Geeson, who played Pamela, the girl with a crush on him, and Lulu are featured in the first couple of minutes of the
Yep.
1996 movie as well.
Yep.
So,
And
Hmm.
it's revealed that he stayed a teacher,
yeah.
that he married Jillian and that Jillian had passed. He's a widower. I read it. I did not watch it like Lou, but I think
But
it's cool to mention
yeah,
that he continued on.
yeah, in the movie, in the sequel, he married a black woman, so it's not that he married somebody else. The movie, the original movie intimates that it's that Jillian
Right.
he would have the relationship, but that it's not how they played it in the movie. This follow up, I don't know why, but that's kind of weird. What else do we got here? I think that pretty well covers everything. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this with me. It's going back down memory lane. Sometimes it's not the the result that you get is not what you expected, or your memory
That's a
doesn't
good thing. It's a good
match
thing.
up to what you expected. But I can appreciate it on a different level, and I agree with Karen. The rest of the cast, beside Poitier, I don't think there was any bad actors in there. It's just the interactions between the characters were just a little bit unbelievable.
Yeah.
But
I think they did the best with what they had.
yeah, that's the conceit of the movie.
That's not on
Yeah.
them, I
Something
don't
like
think.
this might have played out better as a 8 episode one shot season series kind of
I
thing.
agree.
But
I
Yeah.
agree.
to cram it into a 2 hour movie is asking a lot. And as I mentioned earlier, even the critics of the time didn't really buy it. But
Yeah.
it's got favorable ratings on Rotten Tomatoes and that.
Mm.
I guess it's what you would call a crowd pleaser.
It's a good
Absolutely.
movie.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have no complaints about it. It's just it's a victim of its time period, I think. And trying to cram a lot of storylines into a 1.5 hour movie, I think was a mistake. I'm glad they left out the interracial tension thing. And not because the subject matter is bad. I just think another subject would have really hindered the classroom storyline. So I can't imagine another storyline being in it.
Yeah.
Can I ask you guys just a couple questions?
Sure.
Do you think that kid's father killed his mother
It's
or beat her?
I think yes, though there's nothing in the movie to substantiate that. It's just a
Yeah.
feeling.
He does. He's the one that kind of kicks at rocks while Thackeray is walking past him and he says his dad is treating his mother poorly. That
Yeah.
the thing he hates him for is the fact that he married his mother. And then later on, his mother dies. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, I'm guessing his father beat his mother to death.
Yeah.
And that's me
Yeah.
putting that in there. And I wondered if you guys thought the same thing.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of implied
Yeah.
stuff. Do you think the kids are sleeping around with each other? Because it's weird how there wasn't like a pairing of the kid. They
Mhm.
jumped around from person to
Yeah.
person,
Yeah.
which I found weird. But in the 60s, I think that was more of a thing, a free love kind of feeling.
Yeah.
So there were a
Yeah.
lot of like implications, and I read into those, which I maybe I shouldn't do, but
No,
yeah.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah, those
Okay.
are all
Yeah.
good questions, but it was obviously beyond the scope of the story.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
that's another, you could put that down as another unrealistic aspect of the movie, that there didn't seem to be any pairings like that with
Right.
in high school. That's pretty weird. But yeah.
Yeah, there
Mhm.
would be like Denham and Pamela would have been together, most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that there would have been another layer of tension because Pamela had a crush on Thackeray. So her being with Denham. But again, that's another storyline to add.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Alrighty. I think that's all we've got.
And you thanked us for watching, and I'd like to thank you as well because this was also a walk down memory lane for
Oh.
me. So
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you.
no,
Yeah,
it's
no, this
true.
was fun. And now this is one of those films you should watch, and I'm
Mhm.
glad I did. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it should be in your repertoire. Just keep in mind that it's from the 60s. That's all.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'll do a little peek behind the curtain. After we stopped recording last week, Lou proposed this movie, and I was really excited. I don't want to downplay my interest in this movie.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good movie. And then that caveat of, but it was in the 60s kind of thing, which I hate quantifying because there were movies in the 60s that hold up today. And this one, I think, falls a little short, but still a great movie.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Alrighty. With that, we'll wrap it up. And Jesse, would you want to tell people where you can be found on the interwebs?
Yes. I am available at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter, X.
Available for what?
Yes, available for discussions
Okay.
and debates. I am planning tonight, as we're recording this, I've been invited to the Capes and Lunatic podcast to help review the new Superman movie. So I'm
Oh my
excited about
God.
that.
That's a
Oh.
great podcast.
Yeah, look for that. On Set Lusting Bruce, we are still going through all the new box set from Bruce Springsteen, where he released seven, that's right, seven albums all at one time. So I'm having a lot of fun going through each one of those with guests. And coming up this week on Next Stop Everywhere, we are discussing Goody Chadwick I can't talk. The latest Doctors era, and
Awesome.
going over his brief, but I think very well done time as the Doctor. How about you, Karen?
Where can they find me?
Yes,
I'm
find you doing what?
Yeah, not a lot, actually. I'm at Oliveria on the various social media channels. I don't do much anymore, but I will see if you tag me or whatever. I'm also you can find us, email us your questions or comments at jklmediareviews@gmail.com. And if you play Warcraft, I'm Aliveria 1705 there. You can add friends and stuff just so you guys know.
Not
I play that in the evenings and on Sunday to wind down. If you guys ever feel like grouping up, I don't know who would be a WoW player in our audience. That's a pretty small subset of our audience, I'm guessing, probably just me. So that's everything, I think. And my blog, alliestuff.com.
And of course, you can find me at YouTube, where you'll find these podcasts, the JKL Media podcasts, and Jesse also sends them out to your regular podcast aggregators. So you can, if you want to listen to it on the go, you can do that as well. Also have my Lose Review YouTube channel, where we've got our complete Babylon 5 series review, including the animated movie. I also have a Stephen King podcast where we just recently reviewed Never Flinch. We'll probably do a couple more podcasts about this Stephen King this year, because he's got The Institute starts next week on
nice.
TV, and then he's got 2 movies coming. He's already had the Life of Chuck as a movie, but he also has The Long Walk and The Running Man coming out later this year.
I can't wait for The Running Man. It looks great.
I
Yeah.
saw that was one of the previews before Superman,
Oh yeah.
and it looked really good. It looked really
Which one? The
interesting.
Running Man?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it-
watched a compilation of trailers for movies coming out later,
Oh yeah.
and that was one of them. It looks amazing, I think.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
And I think The Long Walk is going to be a good movie, but it's not exactly uplifting.
No,
Yeah.
very much not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that one plays with the general public. And where else was I? Oh, yes. And also you can find my writers interview podcasts on my Lou's Review channel as well, on Twitter and Blue Sky. Yeah, I'm Lou W. Sitzma. And with that, as Ebert and Siskel used to say, the balcony is closed. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
And scene.
The proceeding has been a JKL Media production.